So, welcome everybody. This is Fire and Water, the podcast. We think of it as coming of age in this age. We seek to cultivate wisdom, wise leaders, soulful leaders, one show at a time. And we're your hosts, Quinita Robertson. I'm Tennyson Wolf. It's good to be with you again today. How are you today?
It's good to be with you. I'm doing pretty good today. It's been a wonderful day. I've had some hosting, but it was good to be with people. So,
Yeah, likewise. You and I were talking a little bit earlier about just some of what's been going on. I mean, we were on a short call about 3 hours ago, and then it seems like 5 or 6 different things happened for
yes.
both of us, and it feels sort of time travel-y, time jiggy. But we were both commenting on some of the good things that are going on, and I'm just glad that in the fullness that we live, we mostly get to be in really good and really great things with really good and really great people.
Yeah, we've had a lot of that, hence the fact that we haven't posted a podcast in the past 2 months.
True. There you are.
We keep, like, oh, we need to do this. And,
Yeah.
but what I love about that, Tennyson, is that, because we have a commitment to kindness,
Mm-hmm.
and kindness includes space for rest, you know?
Yeah.
And so not just pushing through for the sake of pushing through.
Yeah. Well, which is the theme that sort of makes it sound a bit funny too, because we
Yes.
decided that the focus and theme of this podcast would be about rest. So it's got something to do with that kindness of which you speak, the fullness and busyness of which I was speaking earlier. And here we are, offering a few little moments of maybe some of the significance of rest,
Yeah.
and some of the ways that we're trying to do that with ourselves, and maybe pushing up against the edges of some of that also.
Yeah.
So where do you start, Miss Quinita, when you think, oh, rest?
Well, first of all, I consider myself a pretty good person of resting, of taking the spaces in between, but I haven't felt that way the past couple months, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Which is so interesting to see myself in the busyness of it, of which I feel like I'm usually not as
Mm-hmm.
busy as I have been.
Yeah.
It's been all really great, wonderful stuff, and
Mm.
it's been a lot. Some of it has been, at first it wasn't that my schedule started off busy, but it was just life happened. People
Yeah.
had
Right.
things happen that they wanted support, and I was able to give it in those moments, and so I have. Um, and some of it was just that, there were cool things that I knew, okay, I'm going to be busy for a short period of time, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to plug this in.
Yeah.
There was one day that I'm going from, I think, one night, one retreat out of town, and then you and I are both flying into Cincinnati coming up, and then going into a thing ourselves.
That's right.
And I knew it was going to be a tight kind of coming together, and just decided this was one that I was willing to do that for.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So choices in the middle of the rest and the fullness, I think, is one of the things. I
Mm-hmm.
think another thing I'm learning in this piece around rest, or a question that I'm sitting in, is how much rest does it really take? I think it takes a
Mm-hmm.
lot more than we really think. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not just rest to rest, it's rest and time for play and
Mm-hmm.
creativity, which helps to feed the work.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't always included that in my assessment of what are the spaces in between and what's needed.
Yeah. So what is the play that you most like to have so as to be able to be well in a full schedule?
Well, I'm pretty geeky in my play, but my
Go
play
ahead.
can be
Be the geek that you are.
yes. So my play can be like designing things on Canva, right? Like that's a play
That's
for
true.
me.
Yeah.
I really love that. I can be creative in that
Yeah.
way. And so it can be included around the work, or it could be a personal kind of thing I'm playing with and designing.
Yeah.
But I also like recently I've been going to the movies a lot, which is so strange for me. Like I'm not one that tends to do a lot of movies outside of the house. I'll watch
Mhm.
movies at home. And it seems to be a season where, like, I went to go see Woman King 3 times, and
Right.
went to see Wakanda yesterday. I've never went to see a movie the first time it's come out. The
So
first
you,
night.
you premiered is what you're
I
saying. Is that right?
premiered it here.
There you go.
And I haven't told you this yet, but I was asked to go again tonight.
Oh, you're going. You're going to double dip.
Double dip.
Now that's play.
Yeah, yes. And so just the fun of that, in
Yeah.
the middle of all of the stuff
Yeah.
that there's life.
This
And
is
one of
good.
the things I think for me is I try to hold the bar that, or the principle, I guess,
Yeah.
that my life is more than my work.
Yeah. Sure.
And that,
She says, as she's designing little
yes.
Canva things for work just for fun. Nice going.
Yes, yes. That's why I said, I mean, that's why I have to remind myself because
Yeah,
I can
sure.
get stuck in that for play.
Hmm.
And I'm learning there's a different there's something different that's
Yeah.
added to the pot when the play is outside of work, when the play is maybe even
Mm,
the kayaking, or the play is sitting at the beach with my friend Barbara, or the play
yeah.
is, that isn't hooked into work, but just um the things that sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's not as physical, but that's outside of
Yeah.
work, Juanita.
Yeah. Well, I love I think you're one who holds this better in the relationship that you and I have, just around like, oh no, it's time. Like I have plenty of let's play hooky in me, or let's call it a day. I kind of like the outrageousness of it. Like in me, it's a good sign when it feels outrageous. You mean like, what? We're going to a movie in the afternoon? It sort of evokes a particular playful spirit within me. But I know that when you and I started talking about this as a topic, one of the reasons we were thinking about it is because the fire and water cohort, the third cohort that we have convened, is coming to a close here in the next week. Actually, on Sunday, I come to Ohio so that we can be with those good folks. And though we had mapped out a whole impressive plan
Mhm.
about how group 4 would come into being, a new group, and what it would take to be in interviews, and just holding good process to welcome and really put some energy excuse me, into a new cohort, we decided to back that off for a year.
Yes.
And there were some real needs that both of us were speaking with each other. And so I think we're talking a little bit about that. That is an example for you and I of saying no, or trying to listen to some of that instinct to be in a right relation with rest or spaciousness. Those are a few of the ways that I think about it. So when I think of that, there's maybe two things that I'll throw in for right now. One, that some of our friends really bring voice to, some of our fire and water people in particular. I'm thinking of Robin Wright, but it's rest is part of the revolution. And so how is it that we go about these big revolutionary or evolutionary things, the causes and things, the people and circumstance that we care about? Because a lot of activists get caught up in sort of the tenacity. There isn't rest, and then there's depletion in
Mhm.
people, and that doesn't do, it doesn't. It's not a long-term strategy,
Yeah.
and it's not a very kind strategy also. So there's that. And then I'm just remembering back, Juanita, to an experience. This is probably, oh gosh, 10, maybe 15 years ago, because I was working with the Berkana Institute, where I think I was freshly out of working with Berkana Institute. That's Meg Wheatley and some of the change and dialogue work that we were doing. And um, it must have been after I had left Berkana, because what happened is they decided, a bit of the staff and board combined, to close Berkana down for a while.
Mhm.
And it was really take a rest. And that's how they languaged it. They maintained the 501c3 status and everything. And I remember feeling at the time a bit disappointed, like, oh, no, wait, you can't do that. It didn't have direct impact on me and my employment or the programs that I was working on, because I was already out, doing stuff in an independent / working with others way.
Mhm.
But I remember feeling like, are you sure about that?
Yeah.
And then as I sat with it, I just came to really appreciate and respect the decision that was there, because that was a gutsy decision to be able to do that. And So given what we have been talking about with our fire and water group and saying, let's push this back a year, it had me reflecting back on that. And it was deeply principled with, excuse me, with Berkana in its narrative and values. And I think in another way with you and I, with the whole notion that organizations are living systems or programs are living systems, if I extend that out to fire and water. And living systems need rest. I mean, we're living at a time, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, where fall is upon us and winter is knocking at the door. And, so it's like the gardens are done and the trees are losing their leaves. And, there's an overall movement towards rest. So all of those things come into play for me, wanting to be in good, healthy relationship within myself, between you and I, with the people that we get to work with. And rest feels like it is a part of that.
Well, I think there is I can't think of the book that talks about rest in ministry actually as a spiritual practice.
Yeah, right.
And as the restoration, we talk about recycle, reuse, restore, all those pieces. And that, fields need to rest in between crops so they can produce better, right? Like those types of things, and how we think about that in all these other ways except for ourselves often.
Yeah, right.
And I think it's hard because what I see us come up against often is we get invited into a lot of really cool spaces.
And I want to say yes.
Yes.
Right.
That's it. Want to say yes to all of them.
Right.
But we can't. You can't always say yes to all of them. And it's this piece about, and to me, I think it's some of the, like, we talk about fire and water, to step more into our grown ass selves. Some of it is prioritizing. Is, when you're a kid, you want all of it. But when we grow up, there's a need to prioritize. Like, what do I care about most? And that means sometimes saying no to really good, cool things.
There you go. I was going to speak that line right in there. That's it.
Yes. Yes.
Saying no to good things. That's what it was.
Saying no to good, cool, fun things, so that we can say yes.
Wait a minute. Don't add all of that on top of it. I was just getting there. Saying no to good things. Now it's saying no to good, cool, fun, lovely things.
Yes.
Push me even further.
Well, because actually when we get to do that, what that speaks is that we're living such an abundant life.
Yeah.
That those are the choices. Isn't that a blessing?
Isn't that a blessing? Yeah. Well, and it takes a little help, I find, for me. That's where there is a friendship. You are a person that speaks that value in some pretty clear ways with us. I mean, in general, and with us also. So I find I somehow need that reminder a little bit, and I keep experimenting, and then I get all excited with my tail wagging excitement about this, that, and the other thing. But you said a line the other day. I think we were talking with someone, and it was one of those ones that just stuck with me. You said, life takes space.
Yeah.
So just like, hey, let me give you a really powerful rocket science reminder here. By the way, life takes space. My parallel has always been, things take time. And it's like I have to stand in front of the mirror and tell that to myself, to remember such a simple yet important thing. Life takes space.
Yes.
What do you think of that? Back at you with your own line.
I think it does. And I think that we have set up systems, that keeps us from acknowledging and choosing. So like one thing that I said, I think the other day we were talking, I said, in this day and time of computer calendars and like bank cards, we have no idea of where our time and our money is going.
Right.
And that I need to make those things visible.
Yeah.
Because instead of having without it being visible.
Yeah.
And you being able to really see the whole picture, you have no idea how crazy it is.
Yeah. And for you, you're talking paper calendar.
I'm talking paper
on the wall. Like I can see it, touch it, right?
Yes. Like I've been planning, I'm going to put all 12 months.
Yeah.
coming up this year on the wall and put the
Yeah.
things that are in it that are already up there
Yeah. Yeah.
to be able to visually see it,
Right.
you know? Because and that's not even the whole picture. The thing that I think about it, it's like, that's not even the whole picture because there's lots of things that don't make it to the calendar.
Yeah, of course.
There's things that, we have to do what we say we're gonna do.
Right.
So even though, like, we may put in our calendar when we're doing a job, oh, there's travel time that's included in that, right?
Yeah, that's not gonna make it on
But
the wall.
well, the travel time usually, I mean, if we're on plane kind of stuff, some of it makes it on the wall. But like
Mm.
even setting up travel takes time.
Mhm.
And that's not making it on the wall,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
so what are those things that, like, how much of the things that we do can we make visible so that then we can see how little space we actually have?
Yeah, or just like being a more conscious choice around what busyness means, what fullness means,
Yes.
what space lives between.
Yes.
Because for me, like going back to where we started, like the part of the rest is play. Like, hey, cool, wow, how outrageous, a movie in the afternoon kind of
Yeah.
thing. But then it's also for me, I know that I need a certain amount of stillness for some reason, the human being that I am, or maybe the human being I've grown to be or aged to be, even, it's like I just find that I really value some uh, space to sit in a chair and stare out the window for a while. And some of that is sourcing for me. Like that's how I get still. That's how I integrate some of what I've been hearing and thinking about during the day or reading about or listening to. That's how I metabolize some of the stuff that we're involved in. Or I need to take a walk, like I told you earlier today. I just finished a fantastic call, and the only thing that made sense is I needed to take a walk. And in the theme of rest, I just need some nonverbal times also to uh, uh, find those ways that I come back to a more clear note or clarity or sense of source. That's part of the rest for me also.
Yeah, I think part of mine is sometimes it's just the couch time for me.
Yeah,
It's like, I
right.
think I call it couch time because it's just people are tiring.
Yeah.
And so being around a lot of people, and we get to be around a lot of people, even wonderful people, it
Yeah.
just takes energy.
Did
One
you
of the
just did you just say that I'm tiring? Is that what you said?
you are too sometimes, but but I said people in
That's fair.
general.
I accept. I own that.
Um, but it's this, so knowing that I need time, to like to just
Yeah.
shut that down, especially the more and more we do.
Mm,
And this is one of the things I think I said to you recently, like, not only the more work we do, but
mm.
the deeper our work becomes
Yeah.
as we're
Yeah.
healing, it actually takes more time in between. And I
Yeah.
don't think that we're doing well at compensating for
All
that
right.
piece.
We've got some work to
We
do,
have
huh?
some work to do on that one, but we're learning, and so
Good.
that's the piece, it's like we're learning. I think you brought up the taking this next cycle off of Fire and Water, this third, fourth cohort, I guess we're finishing the
Mhm.
third one, was going to be starting in February of
Yeah.
next year. And instead it'll start in February of 2024.
Yeah. Right.
And we'll start application process of August in 2023,
It is. Yeah.
um, to open up that. But taking the time, some of
Right.
it for me
Hmm.
was I'm an empty nester for the first time.
Yeah.
And there's a way in the Fire and Water, in the
Mhm.
eldering that we do, that for me has a component of the mothering. And
Mm.
I wanted a year off where I wasn't mothering anyone at that layer.
Mm.
That intensity
Yeah.
for some time. A friend, beautiful friend, Shannon, asked me the question, what would it mean to tend to my woman's heart right now?
Yeah.
And I got clear I needed that.
Mm.
I just needed a place for my womb to rest
Mm.
and for me to learn what it means to be me in this season of my life.
Mm. Beautiful.
Um, and just to give my space and give
Mm.
us some time and space
Mhm.
to sit in what have we learned? We've been through 3 cycles of fire and water. We've
Yeah.
been in fire and water holding people since the fall of 2019.
Mhm.
What does it mean to take a break and kind of break, right? We're still kind of in it, but to share what we've learned.
Yeah, well, or the way that I hear that is, because there's a pen and paper version of that learning and some typing notes or drawing things on the walls, but there's also some just sit and don't think about it. Like that's part of it for me. The path in contemporary life is so often moving from one thing to the next and trying to do good work and often doing such good work with all of that. But the deep spirited human that I am needs and appreciates having some time where I'm not thinking about it and it just runs in the background. I find that creates a certain freedom for me to be more insightful, for that matter, and more reflective about what we've done and what I desire in my heart in a moving forward way also.
Yeah, I think there's some break from from having the current
Yeah.
fire and water, a current fire and water group going. I think
Mm.
that part of what for me is kind of taking up that space of
Yeah.
just having it run in the background is that there's also, we have these alumni that that keep staying around. um and the foundational pieces that as we've learned that need to be put in place, that it's just a different kind of managing of fire and water, not to replace one with the other, but
Mm.
to put some systems in place um, so that we aren't, um, so that we have space later, I guess, to continue in a practice of rest.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I know you pick that up in some ways that are different. Like you go into the systems piece of it, and
Yeah.
something in me is always like fighting and complaining a little bit about that. But all of it is about desire to stay in, pretty clear centered selves and be able to be in loving and wise and soulful ways with those who have come in and taken journeys with us. I feel so often that there are people that have come through fire and water that have forever changed who I am as a human being. And what a thing to be in relationship where we are forever changing each other.
Mhm.
So excuse me, I have a question for you. If we're placing a value on rest,
Yes.
and uh, the short of it is, I suppose I'm trying to get to what do you recommend for some steps to resting that if you're not able to take 3 months off and go sit at a beach, it's like, what are some of the things to do? And I relate to I'm just looking for little things in the moment or in the day, but not just those. Also, like, it's a radical move to me. The rest is part of the revolution. It's a radical move to actually book out a week in my life anyway, and say, no, this is a nothing week. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to be timeless. I'm going to be, not scheduling calls. I'm not going to be focused on my email and some of those kind of things. But what do you recommend as some steps to move in a rest oriented and rest appreciated life?
I think one is that there needs to be rest in different scales of your life.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is the rest that you get daily?
Hmm.
So even like your sleep, that can be part of it, but it also can be like, I know in some of our wisdom series, what we've done is we've had people set a timer
Yeah.
for this amount of time. So it might even just be set a timer and then just for 5 or 10 minutes, just sit quietly,
Yeah.
right?
The
It could be
breath.
that on a daily kind of basis that you can do.
Mm.
The other thing is, what rest do you have weekly?
Hmm.
Are you one that takes a day out of your schedule, or that, I can get really off track and be working, 6 days a week, 7 sometimes days a week. but do I have a designated day that's no, like, nope, I don't take any clients on this day, or I'm not,
Yeah, right.
working at all on this day, that that there's a rest in that way.
I have become so crappy at that. Like I have it in my calendar, and I put this in probably a year and a half ago or something. I said Wednesdays are my days where I'm not booking calls and things like that. I'm not talking about the times when we
Yeah.
have events and gigs and things like that, but just
Yes.
like holding that Wednesday, and it's in my calendar, blocked out the
Yes.
18-hour chunk, whatever it is. And it has been so long since I've had nothing that I chose not to book something on a Wednesday. Oh
Yes.
boy.
Yes. Well, and that speaks to, I think, that it's not easy, right? Like, in this
Yeah. Well,
culture that
thank you.
pushes and pushes and pushes, I think it speaks
Mm,
to the fact that you are swimming against the
mm,
current in that way, to
mhm.
claim it. Maybe that's why Robin speaks about it as a revolutionary act, right?
Right.
Because it's not easy. The
Right.
other the other thing I was thinking about is one of our Fire and Water people, another one of
Mm,
our Fire and Water people, who spoke
mm.
that she didn't want to work in a way that she was working for vacation,
Yeah.
that she didn't want to live a life where her work was all about trying to make it to her vacation days. And so this piece about um how are we kind enough that our life has the space that we don't feel like we have to run away from work,
Oh gosh. Yeah.
but are just choosing to step away at times
Yeah.
because there's beauty and life there
Yeah.
too.
Well, I mean, now we're talking about some of the underlying patterns that make it hard, right?
Yes.
And there's another person in our fire and water circle. I think it was Lisa Hess. So shout out to Lisa Hess here. Was just talking about, in some ways, the Eurocentric view and the Protestant work ethic, those kinds of things that embed such a value of got to keep working. Your value, your worth is in your efforting,
Yes.
and you're doing better. And there's so much of that I can relate to, that at times have served me in ways, to help me accomplish and do things. But as an overarching belief system, boy, that is an incessant squeaky wheel.
Well,
And I'm finding in the life that I live now, I'm noticing those things a little bit more. Like, where in the hell does this anxiety, as I experience it, anxiety come from about not accomplishing or not accomplishing more, which in some way is a ridiculous notion, because it overlooks some of the celebratory moments of the day that are truly phenomenal.
so this takes me back to, my
This takes me back.
yes, my cultural anthropology
There you
day.
go. Let's hear it.
And this piece around, Europe, you
Hmm.
had to get the crops seeded before
Hmm.
the frost, or you didn't eat.
Farmers.
Farmers, right?
Mhm.
Like it was time driven. Well,
Yeah.
in Africa, that wasn't the same,
Interesting.
because you had sun, you didn't have to race the clock in the same
Why
way.
rush? Yeah.
Yes.
Sun is
So,
here.
yep, we take today, right? So
Yeah.
you wait because somebody showed up in the time. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so realizing how, our lineage is tied to some of that
Yeah.
energetic.
That's good. We have the northern hemisphere
Yes.
or the southern hemisphere. If
Yes.
you go,
Yeah.
we have not the equatorial regions of the
Yes.
land. Yeah,
Yes.
and then how that grows though into like cultural
Yes.
patterns and
Yes.
cultural insistences,
Yes.
right? Oh, gee.
Yes. And what it means. So then what that means about you being responsible or not being responsible,
Oh
being,
gosh,
all that
yeah.
whole European narrative that we've because of colonialism, that we've all been living under.
It is pretty prominent. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. Well, rest. All right.
Yes. And then I'll say also rest in a month's time. Like, what does it look like to make
Hmm.
sure monthly you're taking some type of rest, right?
Yeah,
And then annually each
yeah,
year, because
yeah.
those can be at different scales too.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. You get all smiley when you start to hint about spa.
I do.
That's your thing, right?
It is. I
Yeah.
love, because that's one of the places where
Mhm.
I can just sit and rest.
Yeah, good for you.
Like whether, it's outside, like there's a spa that I sometimes go to in Asheville and it looks over the mountains and stuff. And I can just sit in one of the like poolside
Mhm.
chairs and just, order a margarita
There you go.
and just
The
be there and
secret to
rest.
rest. Yeah.
Or, get a massage, like
Mm.
taking the time to really have some body work done there in that way,
Mhm.
or sitting in the hot tub and not have to be on it can be timeless too, right? Like I can be in as long as I want and then get some food and be out or go rest in my bedroom or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a place where there's pampering happening.
Mhm.
So it's not only just alone rest, but it's a like attending to
Yeah.
that I get to experience.
Well, I love it. When I think of my experience here in the space that I live solo in a townhome here. And one of the enjoyable points of rest for me is which I've done a couple of times. Like I've almost created my own little staycation is too cute to say it that way, but my own little retreat space of, for these 4 days, I'm 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 committed to a lot of nothing.
Mhm.
And sometimes that and for me, that tends to look like I don't want it to be TV. So I'm not talking about those times. I enjoy those things too. But I'm talking about more of an empty space, I suppose. This really feeds me. So it's not TV, it's not social media, it's not email. And often I like turn all my clocks off, all the digital coffee maker, um, uh, microwave things that have clocks on them. I love to turn it off and then just be in sort of the daylight, natural as it is, and a candle. Those are such freeing times for me. Like those are healthy times. You've seen me a couple times when I come out of those, and I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, life is good, and I have new skin, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you and I did something when you were recently here last week. You were here and we were doing a lot of our planning and connecting and dreaming. And we were deliberate about our breath process with one another, breathing meditation in the morning for 15 minutes or 20 minutes. And I loved it, like we say hello, we say good morning, and the candle's lit, and then put a timer on and just breathe. And I think one of the things I shared then was that that breath, that meditative practice for me creates a moment of timelessness. And I need timelessness. All of the things that I love to work hard at and get within deadlines and all those kind of things. My soul needs timelessness,
Mm.
which I suppose is another way of saying my soul also needs rest. But in that simple little practice, sometimes it's just, oh gosh, make sure you do this in your day. For me, this would be what I need. Make sure I do this in my day, because it creates at least some of that day-to-day practice of some restfulness.
I think the timelessness piece is what I would take back to the play. That
Yeah.
to me is one of
Mm.
that's the kind of through
Mhm.
line in rest and play, is
Yeah.
that when you're really in a play place,
Mhm.
there is a timelessness that occurs. One
Yeah.
of the things I notice, like, even if it's the silly play of Canva and design, I
Yeah.
can jump from one to another, and I don't have to, like, complete one before I go to another. I don't have to
Right. Right.
there's,
Right.
like there's a playfulness in it, right? There's a timelessness in the
Yeah.
creativity because 'cause you're just in it, and you can be taken away in it.
Yeah.
You can dive into and play and have fun and
Right. Right.
not have to be so orderly.
Yeah. Well, let's maybe tuck it in for today. I was going to get cute and say because I need to go take a nap, but that's not quite true. I've already done that today. Thank you very much. But I wonder, in a closing way, for each of us, is there an encouragement that you would like to speak, that each of us would like to speak, so that others can experiment away with their own relationship with rest?
I think I would just say I love it's a quote actually by Iyanla Vanzant.
Mm,
And she says that we so often give from a half empty cup.
mm,
But what's in the cup is yours. You're
mhm,
supposed to give from the overflow.
mm,
And that when we're giving from a half empty cup, and this piece is mine, I think when we're giving from a half empty cup, what we're looking for often is for whatever that thing is to fill
mm,
us up.
mhm,
And so at that point, we become a taker and not a giver.
mm,
And so getting really clear about where are the places that I need to still fill up my cup, that it's
mhm,
not, I'm not giving cleanly.
mm, mhm.
And you?
Yeah, I mean, that's well put. I think mine was a little more general here, because I love the principle of things, but it's just like be curious about your own relationship with rest.
Yeah.
I know this is something that matters to me, and it leads to things like, well, maybe I'm not going to do more email. I just am going to go for a walk right now. And amazing how that can, I find, restore some uh, a different kind of life within
Mhm.
me that does need, excuse me, does need some space and some not rush in it. So, but just being curious, I kind of live with the working principle that when we're curious about things, things start to show up, and that includes relationship with rest and some of the things that we're speaking to. So I imagine that things show up, and we're putting a little marker in the ground to say, "Hey, you're not crazy for doing that. This is real and important stuff."
Yeah.
Thanks to everyone for joining in today. A little bit of a longer conversation. It turned out to be around rest, but I'm glad to be able to offer it. I'm glad you and I continue to do these things and sort of get back on it with this one. We've missed a couple of
Yes.
months, so yay to have it here. So thanks for listening. Thanks for support. Thanks for curiosity. For the practices that any of you are experimenting with that align with some of the things that we're saying, I think we do create some kind of groove by the little things that any of us do as individuals or small groups. We're contributing to a world in which some healthy or more awake or more conscious ways are possible, more wise and soulful ways. We have several ways, as many of you are aware, to stay in touch or reach out. Fire and Water is one of ours. Well, the best way to get to this now is qtwisdom.com. You and I have a shared website, and it's got some access to most of the things that we're engaged in and exploring together. And there's always the Nizuzu site, nizuzu.com for you, Juanita, and the tennisandwolf.com site for me. Thanks, everyone. Wishing you a good day.
Thank you.